Hi, my name's Londe Yusuf.
And my name is Reggie Williams.
And we're the co-founders of Black Film Space. Black Film Space is a grassroots organization dedicated to enhancing the skill sets of Black filmmakers and building a community of creatives. We host events such as screenwriting workshops, panels, mixers, and other events that are designed to support Black content creators.
In the next episode of the Black Film Space podcast, we interview Dara Taylor. Dara Taylor is an accomplished film composer and score producer who has worked on 17 short films and 4 feature films. Her work has been featured on films like A Bad Mom's Christmas, Sausage Party, Netflix's Lost in Space, and the upcoming Shaft movie starring Samuel L. Jackson. We talk with Dara about the basics of film composition, the process of composing a film score, and her path to finding consistent work in Hollywood. But before we start the interview, we have a few brief announcements. On Thursday, June 13th, we're hosting a screenwriting workshop from 7 to 10 p.m. in Manhattan. We workshop 2 screenplays, 15 pages or less, and offer constructive feedback. All experience levels are welcome. Admission is $6. On Friday, June 28th, we're hosting a summer screening series at the Bishop Art Gallery in Brooklyn from 8 to 10 p.m. We are going to screen 8 to 10 short projects from the Black Film Space community, and admission is $10. On Sunday, July 21st, we're hosting our 4th annual Summer Mixer in Flatbush, Brooklyn. The Summer Mixer is our signature event where creatives like you get a chance to mix, mingle, drink, eat, and dance in the ultimate summertime setting. Early bird tickets go on sale May 31st, and admission starts at $15. Admission includes open bar, unlimited food, a live DJ, and raffle giveaways. For more info on all these events, go to blackfilmspace.com. And now, on to our interview. All right, thank you, Dara, for joining us on the Black Film Space podcast.
Thank you for having me, Reggie. This is great.
So, you are a music composer, and I'm really excited to have you on the Black Film Space podcast because personally, I don't know any music composers, and I know some of my colleagues have always struggled in this area, so we're really looking forward to your insight here. Can you tell us about the positions in the music department for TV and film and what each role is responsible for?
Sure. So you have the composer, who's in charge of, actually writing the music for the film or television show. But then you have, typically you have a music supervisor. And that role kind of depends on the production. Some music supervisors mostly just deal with song syncs and other kind of non-underscore pieces of music that you hear and getting all of that licensed and finding different pricings and all of that. But some also are kind of the first line of defense for producers for music in general. So some of them are also in charge of finding a composer or sending the producer a few options of people that they think might fit the vibe of the show. Then you have, under the composer, you have a variety of people. So I've done both composing, but I've also done a lot of score producing, which is just sort of making sure that the music gets into the final movie by any means necessary. So that includes, finding musicians and making sure all the parts are available and kind of being with the composer from start to finish in spotting sessions, which is when the composer and director sit down and talk about, where music comes in, where it comes out, what it should say, or what it should not say at any particular moment. And through music playbacks, to just really know the score like the back of their hand and make sure that everything is delivered to the final dub or the final sound mix. And usually they will also work with a music editor who is kind of the first line of defense at the mix. If anything needs to be adjusted slightly, or majorly, they're usually there to see what they can do before they have to go back to the composer and see if anything needs to be changed.
Mm.
So depending on the production, on short films, usually the composer is everything. But on larger productions, there's usually a pretty robust team, because there's a lot of music to get done and usually too short of a time, and a lot of moving parts to make sure everything gets there to the best of everyone's ability.
Yeah. Okay. Can you walk us through the process of composing a film score on a short and on a feature?
Sure. In theory, they're the same.
Mhm.
There's just one has more music than the other. What the typical process is, at least in my experience, is the composer is brought on by any variety of people. It could be it could be a producer, a director, a music supervisor. I was recently asked to do a short from the DP. It depends on who knows people and who's got say. Um, so you're brought on. You discuss all of your rates and scheduling and all of that, either yourself or with an agent, again, depending on the scale of the project. And then you start meetings with the director and producer. Depending on how early you're brought on, you can spend some time and talk about kind of thematic ideas or conceptual ideas, and kind of shoot some stuff back and forth with the director and see if you're heading in the right direction, even before you get a cut of picture, which is always nice to kind of have that time to get all of those kinks ironed out before it's go time. Because usually, once picture is delivered, it's go time, and there is a deadline, and there is a date you need to have everything finished by. So as far as how long, yeah, and then from there, you'll work on specific cues, or no, you'll sit down with the director and producer and spot the film, which again is deciding where music comes in, where music comes out, and what each piece of music should be. Usually there is a temp guide that is in there. So temporary music that either the editor or a music editor, depending on the scale of the project, has put in, just to get a general sense of the genre of music, the dramatic impact they'd like on certain lines or actions, and ins and outs mostly.
Okay.
But again, in addition to the music, the ins and outs are usually only a guide. So it's nice to sit down and kind of talk through the whole film, and discuss in depth, because this is really the only chance you're going to be able to discuss this in depth and conceptually about the music and the music alone. And then you go home and you write, or go to your studio and you write, sending either, depending on where you are and where your producer is, you're either sending them tracks and video quick time for them to give comments on, or you're meeting in person to watch a whole bunch of cues at once. A cue just being each instance of music in a film or TV project. So you're watching all those tracks, or as many tracks as you have available at the time. Or sometimes it's sort of an in-between thing where you're able to kind of play something online and have direct feedback on the phone with the producer. They've got a few things out there that sort of do that. I haven't found one that does one great yet, but they're working on it. And then after that, after everything is approved, hopefully, depending on the budget and the scale and the time, then you would record musicians, whether it's an orchestra or a rhythm section or a funk brass section or all of the above, and have that music mixed and then delivered to the dub stage. As far as the amount of time, you do it in the time that they give you. So it could be, I think the shortest amount of time I had to do a short was probably 4 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but
How short was it?
it was probably like a 15-minute short or something, but it wasn't 15 minutes of music. But yeah, it still takes some time to get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fast. But let's see. For instance, for Shaft, I think we had. Let's see. We had a few months to get everything done, which was nice.
I thought you were going to say like 40 something years.
No, no, a few months is usually pretty good and reasonable, and usually about the time the average time allotted. Yeah, but also, the composer on Shaft, Christopher Leonard, who I was working for, he's worked with Tim Story on a bunch of things. So we knew it was coming. So, in the back of his mind, things were able to percolate even then. So yeah, the time it takes is the time that they give you, but it's always best to bring them on sooner.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of tips can you offer independent directors who are working with the composer?
Well, I guess what I was just talking about is bringing your composer on as early as possible, even if you don't have anything to give them picture-wise. It shows that music isn't really an afterthought and it's something you're thinking of kind of within the narrative of the film.
Yeah.
B, it really gives that percolation time and also time for that relationship to develop, and you be able to sort of understand each other's workflows and each other's likes and dislikes. And even with the script, like I love being brought in on the script phase because it's nice to be able to also sort of imagine what's going to happen and let the words really take you somewhere first before you see the visuals. Because sometimes it's a completely different feeling when you see it, but sometimes you can really it's really nice to read it and see what your immediate visceral reactions are just to the words alone. But also it gives you it gives you more time to start thinking of ideas and themes. And again, all of that could change, but writers have vomit drafts and page one rewrites and all of that. So it's nice to kind of have that time available to come up with some ideas, even if they don't work, but at least you started the process.
Yeah.
The creative process.
Yeah.
And then one other thing that they can do. One other tip for filmmakers, independent filmmakers, is don't worry about not knowing anything about music or the language of music.
Good.
Funny, I hear it almost every time. Sorry, I don't know anything about music. That's okay. That's great.
Yeah.
That's actually preferred usually.
Why is that?
Well, because sometimes people who know just enough about music will sometimes lead you in the wrong direction with something that they an instrument, for instance, that they think that an instrument that they sort of know about, but it could not be what they mean. For instance, someone could say, "Oh, I want a cymbal there," but which kind of cymbal do you want? A crash cymbal, a suspended cymbal? Do you mean a drum kit with the cymbal? Sometimes it's a lot better to talk conceptually and, more importantly, dramatically. Even some of the best playback notes we get are dramatic. I want to feel X while this is happening, and it's really our job to interpret that.
Yeah.
That's the main difference between a concert composer and a film composer, is that even though concert composers obviously have a lot of feeling and emotion behind their work, but it's our job to interpret what the director means and what's how to address that with music dramatically.
Mhm.
So so don't worry about it. It's great that we can just talk about story, um, and then we hope that we can find a common ground between those two
Mhm.
things.
Mhm. Are there any like common mistakes, or what kind of mistakes do you see new filmmakers making when working with a composer?
Um, let's see here. I'd say waiting until the cut is locked to send any picture.
Mhm.
Um, we understand, I mean, especially with modern technology, that a lot cut is never really a lot cut. This happens on all scales of film. Send us your first kind of director's cut, or send us an assembly if it's documentary. Just like wanting to get the script, we want to see it. We want to see the characters. We don't know what they look like.
Mhm.
We can only kind of guess on our own imaginings by mood boards and things. But send us, like, even if there's a whole bunch of chatter in the background, just send us. I mean, don't send us daily. That's a little much. But um, whenever you have a cut, as rough as it is, send it over,
Mhm.
because you never know what that's going to spark,
Mhm.
or some scene that might get cut might get cut later on, that might spur on a thematic idea that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just send us a picture. We're not judgy. Just send it over.
Okay.
Well, we really want to be part of the process, as much as possible. So we're happy to be there early on and go on this ride with you.
Okay. Are there any like I guess what kind of questions should a director and a film composer ask in advance at the pre-production phase, the production, during post-production, to ensure that they have everything that they need?
Let's see. Other than obvious budgeting things, and to me, I mean, you know, paying your rent is important, but um, to me, I also look at the budget as, okay, what can I afford to record?
Mhm.
Um, if I can afford to record an orchestra, great. If I can afford to only um, record a string quartet, that's also great. I just need to know, because it'll change how I write the score.
Yeah.
Um, unless it's huge and, I mean, modern technology in a sense can do a lot of things, but me, I always like, even if it's a single player or two, to bring life into anything, because again, what we're there for is emotion,
Mhm.
and humans bring emotion, and yeah, but it'll make me think differently. It's like, well, maybe this should be kind of a smaller chamber thing, and see if that works. I mean, some of the most wonderfully creative scores out there were out of necessity, and the fact that they couldn't afford this, so
Mhm.
they experimented and they found some really cool sounds, and it worked great. Um, but a lot of that is in kind of the indie sector. But
Mhm.
yeah, creativity by necessity is really important, I think. So yes, you should talk about that, um, just because it'll inform the rest of your decisions.
Mhm.
Um, Timing also will inform that. But then other things. So one thing I like to ask a director, especially if there's no temp score in there,
Mhm.
is what they're feeling there, what sort of music they're feeling there. Sometimes it's really kind of carte blanche, and it's like, I don't know, just send me some stuff, and then you kind of have the free hand. But it's
Right.
always nice to know at least what genre they like,
Mhm.
and usually they do, and it'll often be in the form of YouTube links. So like, I really like this recording artist, or um, I've had you know Alice Coltrane be a reference. I've had, other composers be a reference, other film composers be a reference. So it's a really wide variety, and it doesn't have to be film music. Just say what it is. What were you listening to? I've gotten that too. While I was writing the script, I was listening to X, Y, and Z a lot. And it kind of made me, really vibe with these characters. This is great to know. Maybe I'll try something in that vein and see if that translates to the picture. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. So getting all of that settled during, I guess that's mostly during, I guess, wherever you bring them on, pre-production, production, or post-production. But those are sort of the first questions that should be answered.
Okay. And what about for a director? Any questions a director should be asking a film composer?
Let's see here. I mean, I guess those are sort of kind of collaborative questions, but I mean, one thing that's nice to ask is what did they think of the script and the film, or any of that? Not necessarily looking for critiques, but which characters spoke to you the most, and sometimes that's informative to the director as well. Just because they've lived with this thing for a while, and especially if the composer is brought on during post, it's another fresh pair of eyes and ears to the story. So just sort of hearing from the composer how they felt, what they felt about each character. Who do they think the villain really is, if there's a villain? Sometimes it's not who you think it is, or sometimes it's sometimes music can help aid or abate that. If they feel like this one person is a little shadier than they should be, then you can address that musically and not try and play that up, or play it up depending on what the intention of the narrative is. So just kind of in any more information they can glean from a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah. Okay. What was the best collaborative experience you've had with a filmmaker, and what made it a great experience?
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of really great filmmakers. I'll mention two in particular. So I've recently worked on a short called Box with Wanjiro Njendu, and she's just amazing, but in a force of nature, and she's really a name to watch. But it's funny, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on the film together per se, because I was brought on during post, and it was really just an end credits thing because the visuals were so powerful, but they didn't need a lot of music. And that's the other thing that's really great to kind of discuss: what needs music and what doesn't, because a lot of things don't. Sometimes things are more powerful dry, as we'd call it. So it was really just an end credits thing, but we developed a relationship through that, and after that is that's been very kind of nurturing and collaborative, and I'm really excited to work on more together. And then another person I'll mention is Tom Quinn, who I actually met at the Sundance Composer Lab last year in 2018. We were paired together to work on a scene, and I ended up finishing the rest of his film. And that was also a really great collaboration. I mean, honestly, I enjoy people and I enjoy bonding with people. So anyone I can bond with and call a friend, I'm very happy to work with. Because this business is about feeling. So it's good to feel good with the people you're working with. So in addition to just being an all around great human being, Tom and I had a really nice collaborative experience, because we were able to really get down to the nitty gritty at the lab and spend a week on, 2 scenes, which is unheard of.
What do you
Just
mean
bit
unheard
by
of?
bit. So we were both at Skywalker Ranch, and I would work on something for a few hours, and I'd bring them in. It's like, how about these 30 seconds? And just kind of work on these few scenes in depth, side by side, with them sitting next to my rig. So when we're like, oh, well, what if we tried that in the violin instead of a flute? We can do that immediately, which is really nice to do and have the freedom to do that. But because we started it there and finished it elsewhere, we were able to kind of get some of the conceptual questions out of the way. And and I live in Los Angeles. He lives in Philadelphia. So from there on, it was sending things back and forth and having phone conversations. But one really nice thing, and I mean, it depends on the person, it depends on the project, and it depends on the composer as well and how comfortable they feel with this. But what I really liked about Tom is that he felt a lot of ownership of the score as well, which is a really great thing to have. So I would send him, drafts of cues, and he's like, okay, this works, but you know what? I took version 1.15 from this cue and I put it over there, and I repeated this one section. It's like, yeah, it's not exact, but I really felt that it really worked over here. It's like, oh wow, that's amazing. To kind of be able to find not just solutions, but that way I also really knew what motifs and instrumentation and things that really struck the chord with him, because no pun intended, because he was able to take that palette and find other places where it has emotional relevance. So in that, the collaborative process was more than usual, just because he really took a stake and an ownership in it. And at the end, this is our score that we're presenting to the world, and it was a really wonderful experience.
Nice. Now, you had mentioned that it's unheard of because you had worked on 2 scenes together. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I'm saying to have a full week to work on so little music. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just side by side. That's nice. That's a lab experience.
Yeah. So you also had mentioned that knowing when to place music and when not to play, and to just let it be. Can you elaborate more on that? Are there any examples where maybe you were working on a project and you were composing something, or maybe you were talking with the director and then you realize actually it might not be, it's probably best that there isn't music at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those decisions are made at spotting, and sometimes there is a temp cue in a spot, and we watch it, and if it seems like it's just droning on and not really doing anything for the story, or you have to struggle to hear the dialogue or really get the emotion of the scene, or if what the actors are saying is just so powerful and so well acted, sometimes you're just in the way. And we don't need you to help guide the emotion there. The emotion is there. We don't need you to help enhance it, because it's just taking away from what's there. So so if it's not done during spotting, I mean, it's happened a lot of times whilst writing too, and it happens on the dub stage. What I say is it's always really easy to mute stuff. So I feel, I take no offense if you're like, you know what, we nixed that cue. Sure, great, whatever works for the story, So so there are times where I'll write stuff knowing full well that it will likely be muted, but It's there if you need it. It's there if while you're at the stage you realize, well, maybe this other scene could use a little something. It's always nice to have kind of cannon fodder. But yeah, there have been times. I mean, there have been times where I don't record stuff because recording something that's not going to be used is just more time and money. But there are plenty of times where I've written cues and they're like, you know what? Even if it's not the whole scene that they think should be dry, it's like maybe we don't bring it in until they say this line instead of this line. It'll have more of an emotional impact to let this line hit dry and then come in afterwards. Because one thing you don't want to do is get ahead of the emotion of the scene. You want them to hear you want the actors to react. Yeah. You want the audience to have a moment to react, and then you respond. Yeah. So if you're ever finding yourself responding too soon, it's usually a time to mute or delay a cue. Also, if you're working on something and the two of you just can't find something that works for the scene, sometimes just take it out, and that's what works. There have been instances of that too, where you have all these rewrites, and you're like, why aren't we finding this? Because it doesn't need anything. Yeah, there's nothing to be found. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. You kind of dipped your toe in this next question, but can you give us some composition 101? Like, what's the difference between bad composition and good composition?
Film music is a special beast because it's always nice to be able to hear something that's pleasant to the ear in one way or another, or that's sort of harmonically and rhythmically interesting. But for film music, what makes composition good or bad is what it does to the picture, and if it helps enhance the emotion in a non-distractive way. That's really the barometer. I mean, obviously there are Academy Awards and Grammys and Emmys and all this stuff for outstanding music composition, but at its base level, is it helping the story? Is it collaborative instead of distractive? And does the director and do the composer like it? Those are really the baselines of any good film composition, is how well it helps enhance, and that goes for any level that the composer is at, any level that the director is at.
Yeah.
Does it work for the film? Some people ask, oh, what's the form of film music? Because songs have lots of forms. A lot of classical pieces have ABA form, sonata form, etc. The form of film music is the film, and whatever is necessary to help propel that. Yeah. As far as bad goes, anything that doesn't do that, I suppose. It's hard because, like acting or screenwriting or anything, it's a never-ending growing process. So there might be something, for just pure listening value, there might be something that you wrote or that, I wrote. I keep on going through my tracks again. It's like, oh, I'm taking that off. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to take that off. Because you grow and you listen back. You're like, I'd like this at some point. Not so much anymore. It's just growth. So what feels good at the moment is good. Yeah. Even if you feel like it's bad later, at that moment, you have to be, you have to like what you write. And the director has to like what you write. And it has to support the film. And that should be your main barometer.
Even at the studio level, are there moments where you're like, I'm not crazy about this, but the studio wants us to do this?
Oh yeah. I mean, you just have to find something about it that you like. Sometimes, sometimes it's also a little difficult when the director has an opinion, the producer has an opinion, the network or the studio has an opinion, and they're different, and you have to find a way to kind of make everyone happy somehow. Yeah, so I mean, you have to like it, but you should really kind of check your ego at the door, because like some of these, a lot of things in post or in production, or all along the way of making a film or TV show. We're in the service industry, and a lot of times we're in the service industry of the audience as well. The directors at the in the service industry, we're entertainers. Um, so yeah, it's always nice to be able to write something, or within the confines that you have, find something that you feel proud of. But yeah, if you really want to add this bass lick here and people don't like it, take it out. Save it. Save it for your solo album,
Okay.
Yeah.
How much money should an independent producer expect to spend when hiring an up-and-coming composer?
Yeah. So that varies, I think, more than anything else, is the amount of money. Because we all understand that independent films are, sometimes self-funded. Usually the music budget is, I believe this is correct. If I'm not right, I'll let you know. You can write a correction. It's between 3 and 5% of the total production budget.
Okay.
So if your budget is $10,000, then it's commensurate. If it's $10 million, then it's commensurate with that. And then that's the money that you have, and then you find a composer that you like that is willing to do it for that. Sort of. So up and coming versus seasoned is who's willing to do it for X amount. And when you have less dollars, you have less experience typically, unless you have a very strong relationship with someone. But that's usually around what happens. I mean, John Williams, I'm sure he's doing quite well. And I'm not sure what those numbers are, and what their fees are versus production budget. And then for some studio things, you have two options, or even for slightly more well-funded independent things. What's always really nice is to have both a composer fee and then a music production budget, which means the composer fee this is what we're paying you to write this music and to do rewrites and to go to meetings and all of that. And then the music production budget this is the amount that we've set aside to hire musicians, hire music mixers and copyists and orchestrators and all of that jazz. All all the other people that you need to have a finished product. And having a production budget is nice, even if it's small, because that's all they can afford. But it shows that they're thinking about it, and they care about the final product, and they want to make it as good as they can afford to help you make it. And it shows that they are separating your work as a creative from the nitty-gritty kind of line producing that's needed within that. So even if it's small, it's just nice to know that they realize that your fee is something for you to write. This is your compensation for your work, and the rest is getting the job done. The rest is an allowance to spend on producing it, really. It's rarer and rarer. Most things are, I mean, especially on the independent level, most things are packages, and we understand that. But yeah, it's nice to have a separate budget for production.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the $64,000 question. Where can producers find good composers?
Well,
where are you guys at?
We hang out in alleys and mostly of the bowling variety. No, there's a lot of great places. I mean, if you're in a kind of film centric or semi-film centric location like New York or Los Angeles or Atlanta, New Orleans, or I mean, it's bigger and bigger every year. There are usually lots of meetups and things. We're usually lurking at film festivals somewhere, and we'll find you. Or there's a lot of online places to find composers. Stage 32 is a good place, especially looking for independent people. You can, either connect with them directly, or you can post a job and just get flooded with information. There are lots of other smaller niche groups out there, like the Composers Diversity Collective and the Alliance of Women Film Composers, which have a list of people of people of color or women, if that's what you're looking for. Also, just if there's a film that you like the music of, go to IMDb and find who did it. And their contact information is usually not too hard to find. We want to be found, so find us. So we try to make it as easy as possible. If it's a larger production, then music supervisors have a lot to do with that, and they always kind of have a Rolodex in their mind of who's available, who works well with others, who would, if the personality is a little more difficult or challenging, what composer can handle that, who does this style of music very well and has a lot of experience with it, who's up and coming and willing to do it for a little less but willing to make the relationship. Stage 32, Mandy, all of those sort of things. You can find people for the other groups that I mentioned. And most composers are on a lot of different platforms. Just try and find their websites and go from there.
Okay.
I've been found on a lot of those things where people have said, I found you on the AWFC website and blah, 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 blah. Here's my film. We tend to put our information in a lot of places.
Okay. And if a producer can't afford to hire a composer or a music department and they have to do it themselves, where can they find cost-effective music online? Do you have any advice in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of libraries out there. Pond 5 has libraries. There's a lot of different music libraries. Move Music is one. If you search, production music or library music, you'll find no shortage of cues out there. If they do happen to mention who each composer is on the tracks, and you want a slightly more cohesive sound, if you can find a few things by the same person, you'll get that inherently just because everyone has their own voice. But otherwise, it's just sort of finding what works. And if you're also able to find something a production music library that allows you to buy stems, that'll get you a little more mileage as well. So you can play, the full track for a very, uplifting or dramatic moment, but then you can play just the pads stem.
The stem is the beginning part of it?
Sorry. I'm speaking in nomenclature. Thank you. Stems are just different constituent parts that make up a track.
Okay.
So, say you have a track with, vocals, guitar, bass, drum kit, pads, strings. You can have just the string stems. It's just the strings there, or just the drums, or just the bass. So a lot of production music libraries, at least ones that kind of work with reality TV and all that jazz, they will have stems available for purchase along with the songs, royalty free, whatever you need. Well, some of them are royalty free, some of them are not. So check that depending on what you're able to do. So if you have stems as well, you can use just the drums, for instance, for a part, and that's kind of something that's becoming more and more popular in film scoring, is having cues and moments that are just percussion. You just get the propulsion, but without the tonality of it, you don't know if it's major or minor. You don't know what to feel other than motion. And that's really great for ambiguous parts of narratives. So any of those things should be able to help.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Also, if you can, sorry, well, there's one more thing.
Go ahead.
If you can, like, library tracks are great, but even if you find like a student composer, someone at XYZ music school, or there are a growing amount of film scoring programs out there at a lot of different schools, Berkeley, NYU, USC, blah blah blah. You can also talk to those programs, and sometimes they have students that are just looking to get some sort of experience. Who will do it for little to nothing, just for the experience. And don't use that card too often. As soon as you can afford to pay someone, please do. But if you're just starting out as a filmmaker, find a student. They're happy to help you, and you'll get to learn what it's like to work with a composer, and vice versa. So that when it's time to hire someone, you'll have some experience in that. And it's always nice to have something tailor-made for the project.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go back in time. Can you describe your background and work ethic that led you to working on film productions?
Sure. So I did my undergraduate degree at Cornell in just kind of contemporary classical composition, which is, concert music and, something you'd see at, the LA Phil or whatever, that kind of stuff. And then from there, I really knew that I wanted to do more film music. So I did the NYU Film Scoring Master's Program. And there we really kind of honed our compositional skills to work more with picture instead of just on their own. And I was, it was a 2-year program there. I stayed in New York for a little while trying to find work. Was having a hard time. So we moved across the country to Los Angeles, and hoping to find more kind of work to start out with, like sort of entry-level positions, internships, any of that. So the one thing that I didn't know in New York was the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and I've gone to a lot of their events. It's just kind of a collaborative, educational, and kind of community of composers of all different levels. So when I got to LA, I went to an SEL event, and I talked to someone there about volunteering, just doing check-in and that kind of stuff. So what that enabled me to do was get to know a lot of names and faces much quicker than just being an attendee, and for people to know my name and face, and just kind of be around, be recognizable. So I was able to meet a lot of people there, both the people that work there and attendees, because, a lot of composers from around the town would go to these events. And I made a friend who invited me to a session where they were recording an episode of Revolution, because she was in turn invited by someone. So she was like, "Do you want to come with me?" And I'm like, "Sure." So so I went with her, and that is where I ran into an old classmate of mine from NYU who was out here working as an assistant to a composer named Christopher Leonards. And from there, I was able to kind of start interning at his studio, and I was studio manager for a while, and then I started doing some part-time assisting, and then full-time assisting, and then doing additional music, and then that's where all the score producing came out of, or a decent amount of doing score producing, and at the same time, writing my own independent scores, and kind of being able to use context from both worlds to put me where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just kind of I just got in people's faces and I didn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
And hope for the best. Just tried to prove useful and whatever they needed at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed to have helped.
How did you improve at your craft?
By doing and doing poorly, and then doing a little less poorly, time and time again. The only way to do this, and this is why a lot of people or a lot of people who start out do a lot of library music, because it is one of the fastest ways to write a lot of music all at once and really kind of hone that craft, and in a variety of different styles. I didn't do as much, but I started off, programming, which is sort of like an orchestration thing where you just kind of you take a track and you just fill it out a little more, just for the sake of time. And then you start doing additional writing for X, Y, and Z. And at the same time, you're doing your own writing. So just writing whatever you can and whatever you can, because sometimes you might think that, oh, well, I only do this. I don't do, I only do X. I don't do Y very well. Try Y. See if there's a way to get better at it, and to bring your experience of not really bring your own experience of what you do well to that. If you're not a big band person, a big rhythm section person, bring what you know about the piano to a rhythm section score, and see what kind of new avenues that opens for you. It's always use your experience always use what you do well, for your benefit, and that's how you kind of find your voice.
Okay. And you have a really diverse body of work. And I love your work, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You've worked on comedies and animated films, dramas. What elements do you look for when deciding on working on a project?
For me, I like to I mean, there's a lot of different factors. One is timing, because there are things that I would love to do, but I can't because I don't have time, or everything is due at the same time. And it's like, man, if that had moved over 1 month, that'd be great. But the other thing is just kind of the film. I really love comedies, and I love like soft, pensive dramas. And if I like the script or the cut or the log line, it's always easier to write on something that you would watch yourself. And then a lot of it is personality, honestly. When I first moved to LA, I thought, you always have to know someone. It's all about relationships, blah blah blah. But it's true. It is about who you know, but that doesn't mean you can't get to know people. It's actually quite easy to get to know people. You just have to find them and talk to them and be a human. And people appreciate that. Yeah. So, yeah. if I really enjoy working with someone, I'm always willing to work with someone again. That's always my favorite thing because it's, you're strengthening that bond between you as creatives and as people. And you've already kind of worked out a lot of the shorthand of, okay, when they say I want a little tickle here, that means X, Y, or Z. Or if they say I want that scratchy thing, I know what that means. You've kind of developed your collaborative language in terms of talking about score and about drama. So I mean, it's a wide variety of things, and do they want me to do it? And usually, I mean, I'm not. I don't think I'm quite at the point to turn down a lot of work yet. But I appreciate all the work I get.
Cool. So you're pretty busy now. Is there any time where the work slows down?
There is time. There's certainly time. I mean, especially the independent stuff slows down. But I supplement a lot of that with score producing and additional music, and working for and with other composers on their teams. So I don't work at a coffee shop, which is nice. All the things I do to make money are directly related to film music, which is very nice. But I mean, right now I'm looking forward to the next slow.
Really? Why?
Well, just to kind of reset. But I supplement. I make my money mostly by working for other people, and then whatever the budgets allow for the other independent stuff.
Can you walk us through the day-to-day of a score producer on one of these studio films?
Yeah. So let's see. Usually when we're in the thick of it, I'm either planning the next playback with the director, or planning a recording session, or planning something. There's always a next step. The end all and be all is the first day of the dub, or the final sound mix, where they mix together the music, sound effects, and dialogue. That's kind of the zenith, what you're trying to make, and everything has to work backwards from there. So like as we speak right now, I'm in Nashville, getting ready to record. We're here recording some of the score for the second season of Lost in Space. Because we know that this next episode is due in 2 weeks, so we need time to record it and mix it and deliver it. So day to day, it's just looking ahead. Whenever you're too focused on that one day, you're missing something. One day is just going through all these Pro Tools sessions and making sure that all of the click tracks are right. So when the musicians are playing, we don't waste any time on small technical issues that can be fixed ahead of time. Because when you have an entire orchestra sitting and staring at you at Abbey Road in London, everything needs to be done because they are expensive to hang out with. So it's just making sure everything is done as efficiently as it can be.
Okay. Are a lot of productions in Nashville?
You know what? Nashville is becoming a more and more popular location for recording. Los Angeles, obviously. London has a lot of recording. Nashville, New Orleans, New York. I mean, really, it's become a lot less siloed as it once was. So a lot of it depends on budgetary restrictions and whether or not the studio works with the American Federation of Musicians, or the union, and there's a lot of factors that that will let you know what you can record and where. A lot of people do overseas recording in Budapest or Prague or Bratislava or Macedonia, and they'll listen from their homes online. There's a lot of really great technology that lets that be possible to do remote sessions. So it's really everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can record something most anywhere.
Okay. You said the industry is becoming less siloed.
I would say so. I mean, at least the recording part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with the advent of all these technological advances, people are able to do more from more places.
Mm-hmm. Who do composers collaborate with on a film? And
mostly the director, producers. Usually, just a few of the producers will actually see and have at meetings, and the editors. The editors are very important, especially on live action things, but also on animation, because the editors also are obviously very instrumental in making what the narrative is.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of great ideas and opinions about what to pay attention to and what not to. And they're like, oh, well, I edited it this way to make sure that we pay attention to her reaction here.
Mm.
And if you gloss over that with music, then they've edited that for naught. Or they can say, or the director can say, we never got a shot of her really reacting strongly to this. Can you help enhance that? Or we need help on this transition and over this vista scene or something like that. So those are the main people we work with in the production side. One person that would be nice to work with more, that often we just don't have the time available to us. But one thing that the Sundance, or I guess I should call it what its actual name, the Sundance Film Music and Sound Design Lab, really pays attention to is the collaboration between composers, directors, and sound designers, because it's always nice to have that collaboration earlier rather than later. So we're not just fighting each other when we get to the final stage. Because sometimes, all right, do we want to favor sound effects here? Or do we want to favor music? And it's nice to just work together from the beginning and just kind of, define what those moments are that are music heavy versus sound design heavy. So we're not just dipping one or the other, because everyone worked hard to create that thing that you're dipping down. So it's easier and better in the long run, and better for the story if we work together.
Yeah. Okay. And would you say this is true? Like I feel like with editing, good editing, the average person doesn't notice when it's good. You think it's the same with film composition? Like you don't really notice the music?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, some of the best scores are ones that you don't notice as a moviegoer. You feel it, and it really helps drive the story. If you're noticing it a little too much, and it's like a heartfelt drama, then yeah, perhaps it's not doing what it should be doing. I mean, it depends on the film too. I mean, rollicking action movies are different because the music takes center stage more often whilst action is happening. But in comedies and in dramas, and in horror, it's usually something that's to be felt more than anything. So just making sure you're never getting in the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people don't notice. I mean, it's great to come out of a theater humming something, but when you're usually when you're coming out of a theater humming something, it's the dun da da dun dun da da. It's it's the Avengers theme or any of that. It's very rarely the heartfelt drama score. But if you can find a way to kind of permeate people's minds with your melodies. It's great. um, but yeah, most people don't notice. I feel like a lot of times sound or music and sound design or like production design, where it's there, it really helps the story, but people aren't like, oh, I see what he did there.
Yeah.
Using that color here and that color. No, they're not. They're just, they want to get from A to B, and you are a vehicle to help them get there.
Mm. Can you tell us more about the Composers Diversity Collective?
Yeah, so the Composers Diversity Collective is a relatively new group. And really their core mission is to really have a list and a community of composers with diverse backgrounds. Because one of our founding members and current president is Michael Abels, who did the music for Get Out and Us and a whole bunch of other stuff now. But Jordan Peele found him on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Because he just wanted to find, an African American film composer, and didn't know where to look. So we decided to have a place for them to look, and I feel like these sort of niche groups are popping up more often when people are looking for something very specific.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a group. We help to kind of increase visibility to industry producers and networks and studios, to let them know, hey, we're here. You know where to find us now, pretty much. If you're looking, you know where to find us, because the question before was, where do I find them? And now we've done that. It's a very similar thing to what the Alliance of Women Film Composers is doing.
Okay.
If you're looking for something specific, this is where you can find us now. And then it's just a wonderful group of creatives who just fellowship together as well. So, composersdiversitycollective.org, if you're looking.
Okay. And what is your role with the Composers Diversity Collective?
So I am a committee member in the industry relations department. So, we deal with talking to studios and, having mixers with them, or, talking to, someone at the Recording Academy to really just let, we're still in our beginning stages. So it's really just letting people know we exist.
Yeah.
And the more they know about us, the more they can tell other people about us. So it's talking to people in the film and music industries,
Nice.
and really developing relationships with them.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any programs, fellowships, etc., that aspiring Black composers should know about, or applying to any mentorship or learning opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say, as a first piece of advice in general, is to try and find a mentor somewhere. They don't have to be someone that can necessarily propel your career. It's great when you find people that are able to do that, like I have, but just anyone that's kind of been there and done that and can kind of tell you where all the potholes are, to avoid, and things that help, and things that kind of help you musically as well. But as far as programs and fellowships, the Sundance Film Music and Sound Design Lab is a really great one. I would recommend it wholeheartedly. And if you've applied, keep on applying. It usually takes people quite a few tries to get in. Then there is the ASCAP orchestration workshop. There's the BMI workshop with Rick Bates. There is an NYU summer film scoring workshop. There is the Pete Carpenter Fellowship with BMI. There is CSAC Scores, and these are all performing rights organizations, like people who collect your royalties, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, that are really helping kind of nurture careers. But the CSAC Scores is also a thing with Christoph Beck of Frozen and a whole bunch of things. And they have a variety of kind of talks and workshops that they're doing throughout the year that you can apply to be in. Last year, there was Universal actually had a diversity initiative for composers, and it was sort of a year-long mentorship program where you got a lot of face time with producers and all of that. I don't know if they're doing that again, but I mean, I plan on applying the next time they do it. So but there's a variety of those, but those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay,
I'm sure there are more.
That's dope. That's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what kind of music do you listen to?
Oh boy. I listen to a lot of things. Usually, honestly, when I'm in my car, I listen to comedy because it's the time to not listen to music for a moment and clear my head. It's kind of like, but I mean, I listen to a lot of film scores just for just to kind of get an idea of what the landscape is now. I listen to a lot of Teddy Shapiro, Terrence Blanchard, Daniel Pemberton, Nick Patel. There's a lot of really great people out there doing a lot of beautiful music. Thomas Newman is an all-time favorite. But I listen to a lot of I've been listening to a lot of jazz lately, actually, and just getting better versed in that, or a lot of kind of like funk fusion, or funk Afro-Cuban fusion sort of thing, Fela Kuti. And I mean, I'm not listening to a lot of new stuff, but I'm listening to a lot of things that kind of will help inform my role as a composer and, know more about different idioms. So a lot of my listening is educational. And then when I'm just kind of vegging out and want to listen to anything, I listen to like more kind of Americana than you'd assume. The Weepies, and I listen to a lot of Imogene Heap. And my taste is very varied. Because I just like to hear new musical ideas and voices, and hear what people are saying.
Okay. Are there any which film scores or films inspire you or inspire your work?
Let's see here. I mean, if we want to go far back, I love like Bernard Herrmann, who did all the Hitchcock stuff, Psycho, Vertigo, North by Northwest, all of that. It's just really a great foundation for me. And I grew up listening to like a lot of show tunes, so but currently, I'm really liking what Daniel Pemberton has been doing. He's found a way to write action music in a very different manner than people are used to. And I think anyone that can kind of disrupt what the norm is always very interesting to watch and to listen to. His scores for Man from U.N.C.L.E. and he just did the Into the Spider-Verse, Multiverse.
The new animated.
The animated Spider-Man. King Arthur and all of that stuff. I mean, he definitely has a sound, but it works really well for a variety of films. So he's been really interesting lately, and Nicholas Britell, I'd say, has really been kind of shaking things up as well as in the drama world. And it's his sort of electronic jazz related things. Yeah, and honestly, I mean, not to sound nepotistic, but I really enjoyed Mike Label's score to Us. The thing that he did with vocals was just incredible, and how visceral it was, and how much, you know, it helped make your skin crawl.
Us had an amazing score.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Get Out was great too, but this was really great.
So the dude Nicholas, which movies has he scored?
Nicholas Britell, If Beale Street Could Talk is
my god, I
recent
love
one.
that.
Yeah,
I love that
it was
score.
Really beautiful, really beautiful. So
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
but those, you know, as far as recent things go, I'd say those are on my heavy rotation, as Spotify calls it.
What are your long-term goals? Like, where do you want to be 5-10 years from now?
I mean, I guess my long-term goals is to kind of change the balance of score producing to writing, and doing you know, much more writing than score producing. But I mean, I'm happy at every step that I'm at. But that's sort of the next goal, is to you know, do more films, more TV, and try and get a few more shows, and really branch out more, and be able to really lean more on my own voice.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dara, for joining us on the Black Film Space podcast. I love this interview. So many gems, and like I was saying earlier, just I personally don't know a lot about film scoring, so I learned a lot here, and I feel like the audience is going to enjoy this as well. Where can people find you on the internet and social media?
So my website is darataylor.com. I'm found on most social media platforms at Dara Taylor Music. So Dara Taylor Music is my Instagram handle, and my Twitter handle. Not too big on Twitter, but we can find me on Instagram or on Facebook, also Dara Taylor Music. But yeah, or, you know, if you have any questions about what I said, or complaints, you can reach out to me anywhere. There's a contact form on my website that I check often. So looking forward to hearing from any and everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Dara. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Reggie.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Black Film Space podcast. If you're interested in being part of our community and attending events, please visit us at blackfilmspace.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Black Film Space. Subscribe to our email list and podcast. Thank you. See you soon.